In the land of oil wealth and grinding poverty, where foreign cars outnumber domestic dreams, a quiet revolution hums in the streets of Nnewi, Anambra State. Here, one man dares to rewrite the rules, building cars in Nigeria for Nigerians. At AfriWealthWise, we seek out the untold stories of Africa's boldest visionaries, those building more than just wealth, but rewriting the future of the continent. This is one of those stories. Nigeria's story is not just one of oil and riches. It is also a story of missed industry and mass unemployment. By the 2010s, Nigeria had become both Africa's largest economy and its iron maiden, shackled by import dependence and fulfilled potentials. In the cities, road teemed with Tokunbo, second-hand Japanese and European cars, while local factories sputter. Official data confirm a bleak picture. Roughly 1 in every 3 Nigerians is unemployed, and more than half of its youths are jobless. The economy still clings to oil. Petroleum accounts for about 87% of export earnings, leaving the country vulnerable and manufacturing on life support. In fact, by mid-2024, the manufacturing sector contributed barely 8 to 9% of GDP, sliding despite hope to hit double digits. During this era of uncertainty, many Nigerians turned entrepreneurial, learning to hustle for a living. In Nnewi, a hub of small trade, a young boy called Innocent Chukwuma found his calling. He grew up among spare parts and markets. After secondary school, in 1978, he applied for engineering but missed the cut and returned home to trade. Apprenticed to a motorcycle parts dealer, he soon struck out on his own with just 3,000 naira from his brother. He and his sibling launched Gabros International in 1980. Within a year, Chukwuma pivoted into the booming spare parts business. By 1982, he formally founded the Innoson Group, starting in plastic molding and basic vehicle parts. What began as a modest plastic recycling shop in eastern Nigeria gradually grew. In Chukwuma's words, we take manufacturing line one after the other, from plastic goods to motorcycle assembly. All the while, Nigeria's road filled up with foreign-made vehicles. Public discourse often lamented the dumping ground of cheap imports. With used motorcycles and cars squeezing out local businesses, Innoson became the counter-narrative. TechPoint Africa observed that Innoson Vehicle Manufacturing (IVM) is Nigeria's premium vehicle manufacturing company that wants to eradicate Tokunbo cars. Chukwuma himself grew indignant to this status quo. Nigeria has become a dumping ground for second-hand cars, he said, driving him to make new affordable vehicles. The ground was tough. Even supporters of Nigerian industry warned that growth was undermined by policy vacillation and infrastructure gaps. By 2022, renowned economist Muda Yusuf noted that the auto sector's growth had been subdued largely by policy inconsistencies and macroeconomic shocks. Rising inflation and a weakened naira made imports cheaper and new cars costlier. Indeed, Nigeria spent over 4.12 trillion naira on imported used vehicles in the past decade, a testament to show how desperate consumers were for any car they could afford. Meanwhile, local manufacturers battled 36% shrinking profit margins, blackouts, and highway potholes. The Manufacturers Association warned that high and rising costs threatened the existence of many operators. Yet, Chukwuma quietly laid his plans. With savvy and stubbornness, he would turn those plastic and spare parts into a genuine Nigeria automobile company, the first of its kind in the country. By 2007, after 2 decades of tinkering with bikes and trucks, the Innoson Vehicle Manufacturing plant opened its gates in Nnewi. This was no mere assembly line of imported kits. It was an attempt at homegrown car building. Initially, Innoson began with larger vehicles, launching buses and pickup trucks to meet local demands. Chukwuma explained he chose buses first of their strong demand, then expanded to SUV, vans and cars. The goal was to one day make every brand of vehicle. Over the next decade, Innoson's little factory quietly rumbled into action. It rolled out the first sample of cars in 2010, but the watershed came in 2014. That year, Innoson made front page news. the company unveiled 500 newly made Nigerian cars in a single day. We will make history as the first indigenous car manufacturers in the country, announced Chukwuma to reporters. He pledged his vehicles met international standards and promised they would force down prices, just as his plastic motorcycles had years ago. For ordinary Nigerians, this was a starting sight. Brand new sedans and jeeps proudly wearing the Innoson badge, not second-hand Tokumbos. The company even offered an innovative buyback refresh scheme. Bring your one Innoson car back for a factory overhaul, and it would come back almost as brand new. Government ears perked up. In 2015, President Goodluck Jonathan publicly assured Chukwuma of patronage by the Nigerian state. Several state governors placed orders for fleets of Innoson buses and trucks. By 2020, the company counted on contracts with the army, police and other agencies. This was validation for Chukwuma's vision, as he later noted with pride, "When I see the first model of Innoson vehicles still plying the road, it gives me joy. It shows that our brand is good." The Innoson plant itself became a school of industry. Across its workshops, Nigerians built the car intended for Nigerian roads. Most engines and body parts still came from abroad, typically Japan or China, but Innoson claimed about 70% of its components were made locally. The concrete yard soon filled with gleaming whites, IVM buses and colorful jeeps. Walking through the plant, one found men welding steel frames, women in stations assembling dashboards, and quality team testing engines. Innoson parts began trickling into neighborhood markets. Mali, Ghana, Sierra Leone, Niger, and others sold under his brand. By 2022, Innoson even ventured into ubiquitous motorcycle taxis. It introduced the IVM Keke Marwa, a 5-seater tricycle built in Anambra, priced far below imports. In fact, Innoson announced selling a new Keke for 500,000 naira, roughly 1,000 pounds. Versus 800,000 naira for the used imports. Chukwuma's journey from makeshift shopkeeper to industrialist drew acclaim. By 2022, he was one of Anambra's richest men and a national celebrity of sorts. The plant he built was nicknamed the Pride of African Roads. Analysts and government insiders took note. A Nigerian economist took note that foreign exchange scarcity had hammered the auto sector, suggesting that unless a single-digit interest rate was introduced to spur investors, manufacturers like Innoson would continue to struggle. Yet, for all the warnings, Innoson kept chugging along, a beacon of what could be done. The rise of Innoson was not a fairy tale. It was a constant battle. Skeptics never vanished. In 2014, when plans for the first batch of cars were announced, many mocked the idea. As Chukwuma recalled, when the car manufacturing company began, we faced a lot of challenges because some people felt it would not work. Too many believed that building cars in Nigeria was impossible or unprofitable. Even today, critics argue Innoson only assembles and relies on imported engines, ignoring the complexity of localizing production. The finance sector offered little help. Chukwuma has often complained that the commercial banks are not supporting manufacturers. The only bank helping industries is the Bank of Industry, but it cannot serve all the industries in Nigeria. In practice, Nigerian entrepreneurs face exorbitant loan rates and scarce capital. Without conventional credit or subsidies, Innoson had to reinvest profits and rely on business loans to expand. At one point, Chukwuma sued Guarantee Trust Bank for slander, claiming it had damaged the company's reputation, an episode that underscores the legal and financial battle he has fought. The very roads Innoson cars drove on were an adversary. Nigeria's highway remained notoriously rough, and long supply chains meant parts could take weeks to import. Erratic power supply forced factories to burn expensive diesels for generators. Like all manufacturers, Innoson was pinned by forex scarcity. As the naira depreciated, the cost of every import boat and engine skyrocketed. By mid-2022, analysts noted that Nigerian manufacturing output fell even as costs soared. Managers at Innoson had to struggle sourcing dollars, keeping products affordable, and paying staffs in local currency. Perhaps most threatening was the tide of imports. The Guardian reported that Nigeria blew up 4.1 trillion naira on used car imports over 10 years. That flood of second-hand SUVs and van undercut demand for new models. Chukwuma knew this firsthand. Make new ones cheap and affordable. Make the spare parts available. and Tokunbo will disappear, he said. But this was easier said than done. Production costs in Nigeria remained higher than in China or Japan. Imported hybrids and Chinese models began to penetrate the market, raising the bar. In late 2023, a business journal noted Nigeria's manufacturing share had fallen by 20% over 2 quarters, and local car makers were losing grounds to foreign brands. Morale alone couldn't power machines. When state leaders deterred, Innoson built a culture of perseverance. Workers often toiled with limited tools. Still, a young welder in a green hard hat would lean into the line to spot-check chassis, motivated by pride, if not pay. In a world telling him it won't work, Innoson's team quietly proved the opposite, one steel panel at a time. Now, a decade in, the impact of Innoson's gamble is becoming clear. Thousands of Nigerians have worked in Nnewi's factory. Engineers, welders, assembly line technicians, and apprentices building skills in metal and mechanics. Chukwuma boasts over 7,000 human resources at IVM. Each vehicle produced meant jobs, not only in plants, but in steel suppliers, upholstery shops, plastic molders, and beyond. Unlike cash-rich oil jobs, these roles are distributed across many families. On Nigeria's economy, Innoson's cars have a modest but symbolic role. By sourcing about 70% of parts locally, Innoson keeps billions in the country instead of sending all dollars overseas. It contributes to reducing the trillions spent on imports. For instance, every made in Nigeria bus means one less used bus buying airline tickets to Nigeria from abroad. While still tiny compared to the national fleet, this homegrown production restores some industry backbone. National pride is palpable. Advertising campaign and local news highlights the IVM label. Commuters can point to an Innoson bus on the road and say, "That's ours." One communist encouraged Nigerians, "Keep faith with Innoson and embrace it as our pride." Indeed, Innoson's official motto is, "The Pride of Africa." And the flagship Ijele model name even evokes Igbo cultural heritage. The federal government has taken note. In 2022, President Buhari honored Chukwuma with a national award for his work on CNG vehicles. Innoson's successes has even inspired headlines. "Driving Nigeria to a future of car manufacturing," reads one editorial. The ripple effects are seen in raw numbers too. Employment data in Nnewi and nearby regions show more factory workers than in a decade. The local economist hums with spare part vendors and technologists who learned their craft at Innoson. In neighboring countries, some government transport fleets have tried Innoson vehicles, giving African coaches and trucks a chance. The mere fact that an African firm is selling buses in Chad or Sierra Leone, long accustomed to Toyota and Mercedes, hints at a broader pan-African ambition. Today, Innoson is not alone, but it is the most prominent Nigerian automaker. It's incubating new products. In 2022, it launched the IVM Keke in response to Nigeria's vibrant tricycle market. And in 2024, it unveiled the first electric prototype, signals that the journey is evolving with new technologies. Each small advance, a more efficient engine, a safer body, a local wiring loom, adds to the nascent ecosystem of local manufacturing. Each car sold in Nigeria keeps forex onshore and gives consumers a stake in the story. Economists point out that such manufacturing ventures can help diversify the economy and empower young people. Rather than a graveyard of imports, Nnewi is building something for exports. Not oil, but ideas and steel. As analyst Muda Yusuf puts it, what Nigeria needs now are fiscal incentives to revive industrial activity. Innoson's existence actually strengthens that argument. Manufacturers are needed to free Nigeria from lackluster performance, said Meshoye of Man. Innoson is doing its part. Now observers argue, policy makers must do theirs. Innoson's story still unwinds on the tarmac. Its future hangs on many factors. Whether policy can truly change, whether Nigerian consumers will embrace more new cars, whether competition can be managed. The company's bold experiment invites reflection. If an African city can build its own cars, what else might it build? Can Nigerian factories someday assemble electric vehicles for the continent? Will Innoson spark a regional supply chain for raw steel, glass, or electronics? The journey ahead is uncertain as it is hopeful, yet something has irrevocably shifted. One man's faith and toil has shown that Nigerians' road need not be paved solely with imports. They can carry homegrown ambition. Innocent Chukwuma and Innoson stand as proof that Africa can craft not just goods, but its own destiny, inch by inch, part by part. As we ponder on this story, a question hangs in the air. What if we judge success not just by profit, but by the factories and jobs left behind? If every car on Nigerian roads was instead built by Nigerian hands, how many fortunes would circulate here? The Innoson story doesn't have an ending yet. It's a question mark on wheels, asking Nigeria and the continent, will you answer with policy and pride, or drift back to old habits? For those chasing generational wealth with integrity and vision, AfriWealthWise is your blueprint. Subscribe, share, and be a part of the movement redefining what it means to succeed in Africa.